What's up, everybody? This week, Greg and I talk about 3 classic SNES games: F-Zero, Pilotwings, and Shaq Fu. That and a whole... Shaq Fu! Really? Alright, welcome to the show. Yes, I know I said this is classics, and yes, I know I said Shaq Fu, and I know one of these things does not belong with the other thing, but trust me, you'll understand why at the end of the episode. Hope everybody is doing well on this wonderful, wonderful Sunday afternoon, or I don't know, evening? I don't know how to pronounce it, whatever.
Saturday evening? I mean, time. What is time anymore? Time is merely just a man-made construct. That's right. Especially in 2020.
That's right, and like the hours of a sandglass, those are the times of our, or whatever the hell the show says. I don't know. I don't watch soap operas. No, but I hope everybody is doing well. Like I said, we're here to talk about some of the great classic games of the SNES, like we did last time with the fighting games, and like we did the time before that with the Genesis games. We've got some doozies in here this week, but I think they all deserve mentioning because they're all classic in their own way. But before we get started, if you are on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, or Instagram, check out Because Movie Network. If you are on YouTube, check out bit.ly/bmnetwork-YouTube. That's where you'll find all of our video game walkthrough, sample episodes, and so on and so forth. And of course, if this is not where you usually listen to podcasts, we are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and TuneIn. And I guess you haven't realized by now, I'm joined by the Gregory. Greg, how are you, brother?
Hey, good. I don't think we really addressed it before, but I just thought we would share with everyone the arrangement that we have right now is kind of unique for what we normally do. Yeah,
a lot of people, okay, before all this, all the Corona stuff kind of took hold and everything like that, me and the wonderful, wonderful Sarah, we switched offices. Basically, her work needed more privacy than my work. And so, we switched where I was working out of, and, she's got my old studio and everything like that. So I'm kind of stuck in my new place, but I'm not allowed to bring anybody in. Trust me, that's a rule. So I've got to do things, we got to do things remotely. So I've recorded locally with Sarah. But me and Greg have got a very, very unique thing going on right now. We're using Zoom, right? Like everybody uses Zoom,
right?
But we do it a little differently because we are professionals.
Quote unquote. Yes.
We're professionals in the way that if in the words of Richard Jenny, in a way that if a cow is born in a tree, it's a bird.
Right.
No, so I'm recording with recording software on my thing. He's recording software on his thing, and we've got Zoom kind of buffering us
to get the visual that we're kind of in the same room, which was traditionally what we used to do is we used to record it at the old studio that we worked at.
Yeah.
Like during breaks and stuff, I would knock out voiceover, because that is, if you listen to the pod regularly, the lead-ins, that's me doing all the lead-ins. So we would do like lead-ins and record full episodes, and so it's just kind of evolved, and it's just so cool how I'm just sitting here watching you over my iPad and with my Adobe behind that, and then the scripts on. Yeah, it's pretty. I figured it was worth mentioning because I was listening to the pod and I was like, no one is gonna know what we're doing because it sounds like we're in the same room.
And the thing is, this is the thing about audio producers too, right? And we're vain when it comes to our equipment and it comes to our studio setups.
Yeah,
but nobody sees them.
Yeah, it's like batteries. Like the batteries, man. They're doing all this work and they're in this invisible product. Like they're always covered up, you know what I mean? Like they're doing all the work and they don't get any of the glory.
No, it's people like take a look at my video studio. Here's my camera. Here's my you don't see that with sound guys because we're very protective and very, very like we want people to see what we've got, but we don't either because we want we don't want people to go, oh, why haven't you got the latest this?
Yeah.
Oh crap! You need
like,
that.
You've only got a Behringer mixer. Oh, jeez.
Well, your interface only has 8 outputs or 8 inputs. Man, I got 16 on mine. It's
yeah. There's always going to be that guy. So I mean, you just got to be proud of what you have and get the most out of it. And I feel like that we do that. I think this podcast definitely authenticates my Audition subscription. So, at least that. So.
Hey, I love my interface. I really do. I've only wanted to throw it in the wood chipper 6 times this week.
Only? Okay.
If I tell you what, if I'd had if I had the chance to buy this again or something else, I probably would never have touched this thing. But
right, yeah. People were dogging on me when I got this little PreSonus audio box I have, the little two channel, 2 input or whatever. But man, it's been surefire. Like I've had no issues with it whatsoever. So I mean, for what it's worth, yeah, it's for the time being, yeah, it's great.
Now, a lot of people are probably going to be wondering why we're going ahead and talking about all this, because one of the games we're talking about is Shaq Fu, right? And we're talking about all of our good equipment, and we're talking about all of our pride that we take in our work, because evidently the people who were involved in Shaq Fu did not take pride in what they've got. But that's going to be coming up in a little while, and yeah, there's a lot that we could say about Shaq Fu. But I picked it especially because, again, we'll go into it.
Crap
Fu, right? So, as I stare at my full monitors right in front of me, seriously, guys, I like talking about equipment because 9 times out of 10, I'm not entirely sure what I'm talking about, but at the same time, I know exactly what I'm talking about. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can never know enough. You can never learn enough. Like, you'll always meet somebody that knows like a little nugget more than you do, or has something that you've never dealt with. You know. It's a never ending. Yeah.
Have you heard the Kevin Smith story? When he's talking about when he was working on Cop Out. Okay, he was having an argument with Bruce Willis, right? Because that's all they did on the set of that movie, was they just argued the whole time they were there. And Bruce Willis is Bruce Willis, right? Uber professional, egotistical, but uber professional, hard to handle, but uber professional, right?
Right.
And so they're doing a shot. I can't remember what shot it is. I can't remember what scene it is, but they're doing a shot. And Bruce Willis just looks at Kevin Smith, and says, "Are you using the 1038-54 lens or some crap like that?" Right? I'm not up on lenses. I apologize. And
throws out some model number that most film people would be like, "Oh yeah, this is my tried and true, sure," or whatever.
Kevin Smith looked at him, right? And Bruce Willis pulled the whole. A director would know exactly what you're doing. So Kevin Smith puts his hand up. He turns to his camera guy and he says, "Hey Dave, what is the name of the lens that looks like this?" And he kind of hand gestures what it is. And the cameraman said, "Oh, it's the Panasonic 835D-F," which is the same thing Bruce Willis said. And he said, "Yeah, that one." Because he knows what he's talking about by looking at it, but has no clue what the technicality is.
He's not a technical guy, so he's not going to be like memorizing model numbers and stuff. He's just like the one that works good, the one that's like boom, like the shot.
That's me.
Where it's like I don't know, that one just like pops. Yeah.
Like, this is the thing, when we've spoken about equipment in the past, you've told me this thing, I've looked it up, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what he's talking about, because I know now what it is by looking at it, but like, the names and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. It's a thing, man. It's a never ending cycle. It definitely.
So, welcome to the Equipment Podcast, right? Okay. So, we start with Pilotwings.
Yes.
Pilotwings. Has anybody, aside from me and the UK fans of the show Games World, ever heard of Pilotwings?
Yeah, totally.
It's a good game, right? It was one of the first flight simulation games ever, but it wasn't like a flight simulator like, we know today, where we could learn how to fly a plane and everything like that. It was basically, I don't want to say a test game, but it kind of felt like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly something if you watch it now. It definitely would have been a likable, good game for the time. It was had good 3D. It had a lot of things going for it that were, but just as far as like the style of it and the way it's presented, it just hasn't aged very well.
No, it's definitely. I don't even think it aged well during the 90s.
But the thing is, it was kind of like a fresh undertaking in some respects.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of, poetic license, if you will, to try something new too. So, but like even when you flip it on, the word art title screen, it just screams 90s, like so hard from the highest mountaintop,
And it's got the typical SNES music style with the, energetic, bombastic, title screen. And then when you come into like the menu, it's got this kind of really stripped down, subdued, junk behind it, which you know they knew what they were going for. And I don't say this was a test game, because it wasn't. It was a legitimate game made, but this was definitely a template style game for how Nintendo would do their games in future, right? So for people who don't know, this is basically a game where you are an aspiring pilot, not pirate, not pirate wings.
Our
pirate wings. No, this is where basically you're trying to become a pilot, right? You play a series of mini games, right, to earn your pilot's license, and you fly a light airplane. You do some not bungee jumping. What's the thing where you jump up with a parachute jumping? Skydiving.
Yeah.
You do a thing with a jetpack.
Nice.
You do tricks and turns on your plane. So it's a way to kind of get you used to using the controls of the SNES, because you use them all. Because this was one of the first games that they released.
Yeah, the 3D thing was still relatively new at that point too. So.
But basically, you learn how to fly a helicopter, glide a jetpack, glide a hang glider, and then all of a sudden, right after you complete your first 3 licenses, your instructors have been kidnapped because, for reasons.
Plot,
I guess, because having an arcade style high score just, I guess, didn't make sense.
Sure. So we needed people kidnapped. Sure.
And to do that, you have to basically use the skills that you've learned to save your instructors. Good way to tie it back. They could have just made it in a sense of, okay, the ultimate test to get your ultimate license is you have to use all these skills. But I guess the plot that they had to add, I don't know.
Yeah. Just to give it something else, otherwise it's like a flight lesson game, basically.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Right? I'm criticizing the slapping a plot together just to sake of it. This is a really good game. It really is. It's a challenging game, especially for its time.
Yeah, it's still a good game. Like, even if the aesthetics are kind of dated and a little bit clunky, like, it doesn't take away from the classic, smooth, perfect Nintendo controls that that them as a company at the time were masters of, for the most part. I mean, you had a few stinkers here and there, but if you're gonna go full 3D, you better have some damn good controls, son.
And they did. And at the time, 3D controlling was brand new, which meant it was insanely difficult if you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, there was a learning curve with that, just like anything else. Like, if you go back to when it was like ColecoVision and Atari and all those games like that. I mean, everything, it was still 2D, and I know they had some 2.5D stuff that they kind of faked their way through. Yeah. But, going from that to even the NES 2D was a jarring shift for a lot of people. Oh, yeah. The games were longer. They had more colors. There's more, bits, so they could use a wider color palette. For a while it was just like cyan and something else. Those are the only 2 colors they could use for certain ones. So to have that shift from the linear, kind of mostly linear, there's exceptions, Zelda, but like to go from 2D to like the 3D on a new console. Yeah, it was a big jump. It was a big shift for classic gamers, and the Atari folks that have been playing with joysticks on that 2D plane. It was totally different,
And it worked too. I mean, think about it, right? This was a Miyamoto game, obviously, because he pretty much designed and developed every Nintendo game that was good.
Right. Yeah. If it's a good game, he probably did it. Sure.
If he didn't do it, he had a finger or two in the pie. I mean, it wasn't just a thing of, okay, you get points. This is one of the first games ever that took points away from you.
Oh, okay. Like, if you crash or hit something, or
it's like, okay, you might have done you might have done a score of 10 on the keeping it up in the air, but when you hit the deck, we won't take 60 points off you, because the plane is supposed to still be able to fly after you land.
Yeah. I mean, that adds a little bit to the whole aspect of flight simulation, which is kind of what they were truly going for. I mean, it wasn't like like a DuckTales airplane game where you're just riding around trying to grab, something to take to somewhere to rescue. I mean, this was like they were like going through the what those things would sort of be. It was supposed to be like a representation of it.
And what was weird too is that it had really, really good physics, which again is, I don't understand how they were able to not get away with it, how they were able to do it on that system at that time. I mean, physics is hard enough to do in video games now, but I mean, imagine trying to do physics on a 16-bit machine on a cartridge.
Yeah, I heard, I read something somewhere, and I'm trying to remember where it was, but it was something about how in the 16-bit consoles, Nintendo figured out that they could add more, I can't remember if it was bits or it was like RAM or it was something. They figured out there was a little chip that they could start adding to their games that would help them process faster or blah, 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 blah. So I'm willing to bet that some of these more like 3D forward games had those accelerator chips or whatever in them to give them that extra boost. Because I can't remember if it was bits or what exactly it was, but to me, that's how you would be able to have a fluid, competent 3D model in a 16-bit game.
They were able to, push it up to a full 3 megabytes of RAM.
Yeah, maybe. The limitations was the cartridge, though. Really, at the end of the day, because they could only hold so much data because it was analog data, and you put, when you're going to CD, it's still physical, but the way that it's stored is in a digital format. Well, you could pack so much more information. That means more videos, more cutscenes, music, etc. So
no, I'm loving that because about a year and a half ago for the game we played Lemmings, and I used an Amiga emulator because again all of my classic video game stuff is sitting in a dusty attic 4,000 miles away from me. But as I loaded it up, it emulated everything. Like, including the bit where it detected I had extra RAM, and it pushed my RAM up to 3.5 megabytes of RAM to play Lemmings.
Nice. And you got 16 something left over. Sweet. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. So, basically put, there'd be 4 levels. Every level would have 2 or 3 mini games you had to play. Each mini game you had a total. Your total determined whether or not you got to the next license, and then you had to put it all together to save the Pilotwings after they were kidnapped. Standard fare. Okay. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily going to be worth the $30 that people would have paid for it back in the day, but
yeah,
it was a good game. It wasn't an arcade game either, which was a good thing, because a lot of the games of that era were in arcades and home console stuff,
home ports, yeah.
But the thing about this game as well, right? It was a very, I don't want to say, we mentioned it was difficult, but it wasn't too difficult. But the difficulty definitely did go up. They used to say that the old video games they didn't get any more difficult; they just got quicker.
Yeah. So there's a higher reaction time, which is obviously going to raise the difficulty.
And this was kind of. They didn't raise a level, so to speak. They put the ones with the most difficult control further out. So, like, the easy one is to land a plane or to skydive. The hardest one is to fly a jet glider or helicopter.
Yeah.
So they nothing got more difficult except the fact that the games themselves were naturally more difficult. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, they would ask more of you.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't.
That's a hallmark of a good game, though. When they level appropriately.
Yeah,
there's a lot of games that are really bad about that, like Legend of The Adventures of Link, Zelda 2. Yeah, it just levels so fast and so hard, like it's crazy.
Super Mario 2 too. I mean,
that one's. Yeah.
World 3, there's an area on there that is literally like, it is compacted with enemies. It's just it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, man, it's challenging for sure.
But like I said, I like this game. It's a good solid 7 out of 10. One of the things I loved about this game is the fact that the only time I heard of it, right, there was a TV show called Games World in the UK. Okay. And there were two video game shows in the UK at the same time, Games World and Games Master. Yeah, one was on satellite and one was on normal TV, and they used to battle it out. And man, you might as well. I mean, I'm glad Twitter wasn't around back in the early 90s, because, you know, we'd watch both shows as kids, and like, which one did you watch? Oh my god, that one sucks, man. You know, typical 9-year-old bollocks.
Yeah.
But this had Jet from Gladiators on it in the UK. Now, you wouldn't know who Jet from Gladiators is over here, but she gave Pamela Anderson a run for her money in the early 90s right there. Especially in Britain. But yeah, so that is Pilotwings, guys. Well, that's it for this. No, I'm kidding. We got another couple more to go. See, that's why we're doing these things in a bulk, because we can't do a whole episode on them. Because can you imagine trying to stretch out like 45 minutes to an hour talking about slapping a plot together and kidnapping?
Yeah. I mean, you gotta keep it. You know, you want content, but you also want to keep it moving. You don't want to dwell too heavily in one spot. Yeah,
we want good content, which unfortunately the next game that we're going to talk about, and I've wanted to talk about this for so long, man, doesn't have.
We've mentioned it numerous times. Yes. I mean, you and I alone have mentioned it at least a dozen times. I mean, easily.
Ladies and gentlemen, the video game with the most ridiculous concept ever, and I'm including 2 plumbers fighting plants coming out of pipes in this. Shaq Fu.
Yeah, the Shaq Fu. They should just add a V to it.
The Shaq Fu. The video game with the worst premise I've ever heard in my life. And a lot of people said Shaq didn't have that big of an ego back then. No, he did.
Yeah, not a worse premise since Cheetah. Not since Cheetah have we seen a more just ridiculous presentation. And yeah, they get sucked into a TV. Or no, a kid's like gets sucked into a TV and they're supposed to rescue him or something. And then they go to get him. And then he's never mentioned again, and you never see him. He's never nothing. Like it's yeah. This one's outrageous too.
I'm gonna throw a disclaimer up about this one. Okay.
All right.
As a fighting game, I'm standing on one side of the screen, my opponent's standing on the other side of the screen, fight. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean,
if you just take you take Shaquille O'Neal and the story out of it as just a plain fighting game.
It's an average fighting like side by side fighting type game. Yeah, I mean it's nothing special, but I think it's just the sheer absurdity of it. Like just it kind of just automatically knocks it down a peg. It'd be like if you saw a Rolex lying on the ground in the park.
Yeah.
And you walked over it and you were like, whoa, dude, that's a real Rolex. Oh, there's a giant dog turd on top of it. You know, it's like it diminishes it immediately. Like it's just the absurdity of it just in general.
Can you imagine LeBron James Fu?
I mean, at least maybe they do it justice now because, you know, like consoles have gotten better and, you know, programming, you know, etc. Like it's harder to see a crappy game, you know, unless big rigs. It's like they were trying to make that one crappy, but maybe they could do it justice now because they don't have quite the limitations they did back then. But yeah, I mean, you're on slippery ground there because like we said before, you just put foo behind anything. Yeah.
Kung Fu.
Right.
Well, no, I looked up, Brett. I pulled up all the ratings that I could get of this, and I'm just going to do it. I'm not even going to do it a disservice. I'm not going to tell you the actual score. All I'm going to say is that this got a critical rating of under 50%.
Oh, okay.
Which I was shocked by. Let's just say it's more closer to under 20%. Right?
Wow, okay.
And believe it or not, this game has a plot.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's part of the absurdity of it. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to read a description of the plot. And
I'm giggling just looking at it.
While heading to a charity basketball game, Shaquille O'Neal meets Letsu, a dojo leader and martial arts master. who tasks Shaq with saving his son from a mummy. I'm not making this up, and I promise that's the plot. And
from the mummy Set Ra.
And if Shaq is to do that, they'll launch a new discipline of martial arts in the dojo known as
Shaq Fu. Wow. Oh wow. Yeah, what a great guy.
I mean,
that just makes him sound like a swell guy, doesn't it? Charity basketball game. Yeah,
he's on a charity basketball game.
What a good guy.
And he happens to walk into the one dojo where the guy has had his son kidnapped by a mystical zombie.
And then suddenly he's adorned with the ability to like fight masters of hand-to-hand combat.
What's he gonna do?
That correlates to basketball. Yeah, that correlates to basketball somehow.
I mean, all right. Yeah. Shaq has done WrestleMania, right, in the past, and he walked into the ring. He's the tallest guy there, so they gang up on him and throw him out because that's what happens when you're untrained and go into this crap. But I mean, just the idea of a martial art based off of Shaquille O'Neal. LSU legend Shaquille O'Neal. I mean,
I always forget that he's a Louisiana guy.
A buddy of mine had like his rookie LSU card. I mean, that's got to be worth a mint right now.
Yeah. He was one hell of a player for sure.
He was a hell of a player, but not so much of a martial artist.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the game just loses points just because of the all that, the absurdity, for sure.
But do you know this was actually supposed to be like Shaquille O'Neal's basketball journey or something like that? This was going to be Delphine Software and Electronic Arts counter to NBA Jam.
Oh, okay.
But when Shaq was telling everybody how much he loved Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, he managed to convince the video game people to scrap their commission and do a new game based on him being a fighter.
Wow, I guess they wanted to do something that the subject was actually really going to get behind.
So what they wanted to do, right? They knew that they didn't have the time or the budget to compete with Street Fighter, to compete with Killer Instinct, to compete with Tekken and everything else. This came out in 94. And so what they did was they thought, I know, we'll dazzle everybody with our animations, which are good.
Yeah.
But
that was the best part of the game, for sure.
And they actually got, an actual Kung Fu Sensei master to help animate the thing, right? An actual dojo leader to do it. Again, great. But they thought the story would be the thing that sells this game to make it better than Street Fighter and better than Mortal Kombat.
Wow. Yeah, no. I mean, and that's such a overdone kind of trope, like if in that whole
cliche nonsense.
Yeah, I mean that's what I meant to say. Yeah, it was just it's just so trite, man. It's just, so if you're gonna do something fresh, actually make it something fresh. Like, you gotta like teleport to another dimension to something. I don't know.
LeBron versus Cobra Kai.
Yeah, something.
I'm starting to lose it again. I gotta calm down because if I start the giggles again. I mean, look, this was a normal fighting game. We mentioned that, but I mean, the story in between the fights just drags a little bit. I mean, it's okay to have the game Aladdin, right? You do 2 or 3 4-minute levels, right? So that's 10 or 12 minutes. Then it's got maybe a minute or so of exposition. And then back to the levels. Okay, that's great.
It's fairly balanced. Yeah,
they had like a 2-minute story point in between 45-second fights. So it was very, I don't want to say clunky, but it was very stop-start.
Yeah. As soon as you start getting in rhythm, then a cutscene that just totally knocks you off, and it gets you out of your groove. I
mean, and the other thing too, right? Which is bizarre, especially for the time, right? The Genesis version of this game was more in depth than the SNES version of this game.
Yeah. I've actually played both on both systems, and yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
I mean, and not only that, that was so rare at the time, because the SNES was more powerful than the Genesis, way more powerful than the Genesis.
Was it really?
Yeah. I mean, you got to understand the Genesis was, even though it was 16-bit, it had the power. Okay, if you take the NES and the SNES, while it was closer to the SNES in terms of power and stuff like that, because it came out a couple of years before that, Nintendo had a hell of a lot more time to develop it. And squeeze everything out of it, which is part of Sega's downfall, unfortunately.
It's not very glitchy either. Like Nintendo stuff, like
no.
I mean, ever since the Nintendo, the original entertainment system came out, man, you hardly ever see any just like complete abominations of programming or glitching. It's really hard to find them. Whereas I found Sega to be a lot. It seemed more rushed, especially Gen 1, Gen 1 Genesis console. And they answered a lot of that with the second generation. But it definitely felt more rushed. But I honestly didn't see too terrible of differences. Like when I would cross platform, like say I play Mortal Kombat at my house and then we go to this dude's house and he's got SNES to play Mortal Kombat. Like the differences are minute, but I could see how it would be a big difference between other games that were more involved and had more, like you said, with the cutscenes and stuff like that. Make it a little more tricky.
Well, I think too, right, the easiest way to describe it for our younger listeners who are out there, have you? I think you haven't said you haven't played it yet. Have you played the Outer Worlds? Excuse me, not Outer Wilds, Outer Worlds.
I was trying to. I was looking for it. I didn't know if I didn't see a way to get it on PC or if it was a console game. Like
you have to get the Epic Store for that.
That's why, because it's in, like, you can get it on Steam. I always forget that Steam is not the only place to buy games.
It used to be the only place for so long, but now, yeah. But if you played it on console, right, the biggest complaint that the game has on console is when you exit an area or it goes to a loading screen, right? The loading screens take a good 30 to 45 seconds on a console. Because this is one of the last games that could be made to this standard on this generation of hardware. So if the Outer Worlds had waited maybe a year and released it as a PS4, a PS5, or an Xbox One, X1, X1, One, whatever,
X Series X1, it's really confusing.
Or the new Xbox, that's what I'm going to call it from now on, the new Xbox. It might have worked a lot better because, you know, it had the hardware and everything like that. I think that's a lot of problems the Sega Genesis games had, is that they tried to make them to the same standard as Nintendo, and it pushed their hardware to the limit, and it caused a glitch or two, or to perform not as good, or, you know what I mean?
Right. So blast. It's just so blast.
It was running the processor at 99% the whole time, whereas Nintendo wasn't. I mean, you know. But I forgot that I wrote these down. I wrote the character names and their and their descriptions. I'm going to read Shaq's because you have to read Shaq's. So, Shaq, a dominating force on or off the hoops court, Rookie of the Year, perennial All-Star, and founder of Shakido, an extremely lethal martial art form.
Shakido? I think I knew somebody named that. It sounds like a name. It doesn't sound like it doesn't sound threatening or like like taekwondo,
Shakido.
or jujitsu, like that sounds
not ego-filled at that point in his career, everybody. He's only a force on and off the court, Rookie of the Year, and a perennial all-star. I mean, good.
And he plays charity basketball games, man. I mean, come on.
And I pulled these off. I mean, I pulled these off out of the book, the little booklet that came with it.
Yeah.
These came. That comes from. I'm not making this up. I'm not writing this down. That's what the book of Shaq Fu of Shakido said about Shaq.
Yeah, he thought he was awesome.
Does he speak in the third?
Sure.
Does he speak in the third person, like The Rock? Shaq says.
I think he did at one point. I don't know if he still does it, but I think I've heard him.
No, it's definitely Shaq's gonna go out there and dunk the basketball, win the game. Shaq out.
And look, I like Shaq, man. He was a
he's a fun guy.
He's a damn good player, and you know what? After his career was over, he's become a very, very good spokesperson for stuff. You know,
he uses his likeness for good,
and not,
you never hear about him, broke and drunk on the streets or nothing like that.
And he does his stuff in a way that's not hokey. That's the thing I like about it. I guess he got all his hokiness in his career out when he released this abomination, Shaquito. Right. I mean, oh my god, look, I could talk about the difficulty as a fighting game. As like you take the storyline element out there. It's probably a B+ game in terms of, you got your A+ games in terms of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. We talked about them earlier on the season. This is kind of like a B+ game at best in terms of the fighting. And I think if you take Shaq out of it, this game would be seen a lot more kindly than it is, because people consider this the worst fighting game of all time. Not one of the worst fighting game of all time.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. There's another one that I think gives it a run for money. I think it's called Fighting Street. I've mentioned it before, but it's like everybody's jumping like they're on the moon, and like the hit detection, like you just like punch right through people and it doesn't do any damage.
This isn't Street.
Yeah,
this isn't Street Fighter. It's Fighter Street.
Yeah, it was something like that. I have to look it up again. But yeah, that one was pretty horrible. But yeah, this. You could definitely make an overwhelming argument that this is the worst video game of all time for sure. Well, not fighting game, maybe worst video game, but definitely one of the worst fighting video games.
we've seen big rigs. We've seen AVGN cover big rigs, and what was the other one? Desert Bus.
Yeah,
Shaq Fu is better than those two games.
No, he's actually said that in his review, that he said he would rather, when he was playing Desert Bus, he said he'd rather play Shaq Fu, because at least that's entertaining. At least there's something going on. Yeah.
Look, the idea of Shaq creating the most lethal form of martial arts and naming it after himself.
It sounds like, I know it sounds like a Mexican dish that he created.
Taquito Shaquito.
Welcome to Shack. Want to try the Shaquito?
This is the other thing too, right? This is the other thing. I think that if Shaq, the character, wasn't the hardest character to use in the game, this might have come up another few points too. But if you're going to put all the effort of making Shaq the greatest fighter of all, in the 90s, you make him your Ryu. You have no choice.
Exactly.
You don't make him his own style. You make him that game's Ryu or Ken, and that way people...
The balance, yeah.
But no, he was the hardest.
Clunky.
There's a movement being made of people who hate this game so much. Like, they hate this game so much that their mission was to find every physical copy they could find of this game and destroy it.
It's a noble cause.
And then there was a counter-argument of people going, wait, they're going to destroy Shaq Fu. We must save the game.
Oh, no. We're at an impasse.
So I actually do have it. I have it on my emulator, and I occasionally fire it up to be reminded how bad it is.
Yeah, totally. It makes a good game even better,
So if you've never played Shaq Fu and you have an SNES emulator, or you have an SNES, find a copy of Shaq Fu. Trust me, it will be the funniest 35-40 minutes you will ever do. And when you feel down, you play that game and you will feel like
you'll feel like a king.
I remember as a kid. I'm rambling, but I remember as a kid I used to make. I used to follow the books, the little articles they had in the magazine for the old Spectrum, and you type in a little bit of code, and it makes a man run across the screen and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
There are those kind of Spectrum ZX, type from a magazine code games that are better than Shaq Fu. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, like the text games, like the one where you like tell it where to go and it tells you what happens, like kind of like a choose your own adventure. But that has more substance than that for sure.
And look, I'm not hating on it because everybody else hates on it. I actually think it's decent. I think the premise of it is stupid.
It's like I stand by my original statement. It's an average fighting game that gets drugged down by the ridiculous premise and plot. I mean, it's a little clunky, and Shaq's not very usable, as well as some of the other characters. But yeah, they just totally screwed this one up. I mean, there's just no. I mean,
they missed a free throw with this one. Oh,
the concept wasn't there, and I think it kind of the rest of the game suffered because of it.
And they let. I mean, this is the thing. If you ever want to make a video game and have a video game endorsed by someone, don't take the idea of a video game from somebody who does something else. Don't do it.
Right.
If you're a comedian, don't take an idea from a computer programmer. You know, if you're a computer...
Unless it has to do with computer programming.
Exactly. If you're a computer programmer, don't take advice from a basketball player. A great basketball player, but he knows about video games and development. It's not... I would say it's not his name on the line, but it actually was in this case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it really hurt him, necessarily.
No, it's one of these things that he's gonna get pranked about for the rest of his days, though. You know, if he says
I want to find a copy of it, so if I ever see him, I'll be like, hey, can you sell my copy of Shaq Fu?
I mean, it's not only that, it's like, you know, I don't know how many championships he won, right? I'm going to say 4, right? He's probably
like 3 or 4, something like that.
I'm going to say 4. Fans of his basketball teams, don't jump on me. I'm not following, but I'm just going to say 4. He goes, yeah, I won 4 championship rings. Yeah, you were also the star of Shaq Fu. I mean, it's just, what was it? A scary movie? He was also in Shazam.
Shaq Fu.
What's your favorite scary movie, Drew? Shazam. That wasn't a scary movie. Have you seen Shaq act? That had me rolling. Right. Oh, that had me rolling. All right, so we're gonna go back to serious for just a few minutes. But that's 2 down and get Shaq Fu. That's all I'm gonna do. On the video version of this, every like 5 minutes, I'm gonna have like 1 frame saying Shaq Fu. Just
for the rating, you gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yes,
and I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Once again, just the overall absurdity of it, and just the fact that they wanted to try to make a basketball player seem like a legitimate martial arts competitor. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, it was harmless fun. No, it wasn't harmless.
Yeah. It sends a chill down my spine when I hear that name every time.
Okay, the final game that we're going to talk about. We're actually going to talk about a legitimate classic now. Pilotwings was a good game. A lot of people know. Shaq Fu was a game that, you know, is infamous for how divisive it is as a game. We're actually going to talk about
it. Shouldn't exist. It should never have been made.
It should never have been. But now it's here. We have to enjoy it. Because
the world would have been fine, perfectly fine and dandy without it, but they just still had to go ahead and make it. So it is what it is.
But we're actually going to talk about a real legitimate Stone Cold classic. We're talking about the original F-Zero.
Yeah, excellent game. Aged very well too.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, we were talking about how the first one
didn't age.
Pilotwings. Yeah, I mean it's still a really, really good game. It's still really well done, but like just the presentation of it. Like I said, this one, it has a futuristic look and it still holds up.
Yeah, I think part of the reason was, right, a lot of people who did futuristic stuff in the late 90s were doing things like 2050, yeah, or 2030.
Yeah.
And like we're only putting themselves like 50 or 60 years in the future. This one puts everything at the time 570 years in the future. So you could be as futuristic as you want and it still look great.
Yeah, you could make up races and stuff like that, and like vehicles. So it really, the other cool thing about that too is that they weren't bound to any like current expectations as far as like they could make the story go wherever they wanted to as far as what they used and how they really did. They really created a landscape that was unique. That wasn't, even though it had the space element, it had its own thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was different. I didn't know it had a plot. I just thought it was just, I don't want to say generic, but I just thought it was just another racing game
kind of like a Mario Kart where you just plug it in, grab a guy, boom. But yeah, no, it actually has a little bit of substance in there.
Yeah, so what happened was, the year is 2560. Humanity's multiple encounters with alien life forms have resulted in the expansion of Earth's social framework, leading commercial, technological, and cultural interchanges between planets. The multi-billionaires who earned their wealth through intergalactic trade created a new entertainment based on the old Formula One races, to be founded with vehicles that could hover 1 foot above the track.
Yeah, like exactly. So we're talking about like
hover cars.
Yeah, like a legit like racing hover cars. If you're talking Formula One, you're talking cars that can do 200 plus all day, no problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, there is no Michael Schumacher in this one. Dang it. But it just, man, I love this game. You know, it was futuristic, yeah, but I mean, because of the fact that they did the whole hovering 1 foot off the ground thing, or 1 meter, or whatever it was, right? The controls were really fluid on it.
Yeah, it was a really, really well done game.
Not just that, the control of the car was difficult okay, what's the best way to say this? If you tried to control, I know this is going to sound weird, but if you tried to control one of these cars like it had wheels, you weren't going to be able to. You had to leave that thinking of the wheels the minute you picked up the control pad, because as soon as you picked up the control pad, there was no wheels. You were gliding, and you just had to control the glide.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they accounted for the fact that there would not be the traditional physics of a car.
Yeah,
and they reflected that in the way so you did kind of like a floaty kind of feel, like you could kind of slide your backside out a little bit more because you weren't bound by. You had one plane that the force was coming off of versus four spots. Yeah. So like in Mario Kart, if you're spinning or if you're like sliding out or something, you've got those front wheels to contend with to try to blah, 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 to get it, keep it straight or build that drift or whatever. But in this case, it's planar. So you can just slide right through it. And it's a totally different set of physics. Yeah, it's really, really interesting.
And they did a great job, man. They had, they had 15 tracks in this game, which was huge.
Yeah, that's a really big selection compared. Like look back, we talked about Road Rash.
Yeah,
several episodes back, and that was one of the only negative things that we brought up about it was the fact that it had limited levels. I think it had 5 levels. It had something like that.
It had multiple levels, but the levels ended up being samey after you've done the first 5, you've done them all.
Yeah. So it was. They might as well have only had 5 levels.
But with this one, every track was unique.
Exactly. That's the point I was trying to get to. Yeah, this one there was variety. There was a bunch of them, and they were all different.
And not only that,
there was a bunch of them. They were all kind of the same.
And there were even like 3 or 4 tracks that had 2 different versions of the same track that had areas blocked off. But when you went into the blocked off area, it was a completely different track altogether, if that makes sense. I mean, like in one blocked off area, you just made a left turn and made it back to the start. In the second half of that race, you went like around more twists and turns and, everything like that, more of a challenge. And you forget that it's the same, it's just a slightly, I don't say slightly, but it's a tweaked version of a track that you've done already, But it was really, really, I mean, good Lord, this had jumps and I mean, okay, the jump thing doesn't sound like a big deal, but like the gaps in between that you were jumping over were like the size of, say, a Mario Kart racetrack. You could fit a whole track in that jump that you'd make.
Yeah, it's pretty epic.
Some had hidden areas that made it longer and harder. They had winds and mines, which was unusual because usually in car games, it was either you raced to see who was the best racer, or you had weapons. The track itself wasn't a weapon. I think that was one of the good things about this game, is that the tracks themselves were the weapon.
I think RC Pro-Am was one of the ones. Can't remember. I think that got a console release. I know I had it on Game Boy, but I think that was one of the games that was both assault and both racing. But you're right about that. I don't remember that. I know that's an early take on that. One of the earliest I can remember, but no, there was the level did not attack you.
No,
in any way. The people did.
Yeah, but I mean,
like there were hazards like oil slicks and cones, but they wouldn't blow your car up.
Whereas on this one, if you got budged into the wall so many times, you blew up.
Yeah, exactly.
You hit a mine or hit too many cars, you will blow up.
Kind of like in Road Rash where they have the bike meter.
Yes.
When your bike meter gets so low, like you come back to it and he goes.
And then you got caught by O'Leary as the police officer.
Every time.
But what was good about this game too, right? Is that this was pre Ricky Bobby before Ricky Bobby, and what I mean by that is if you went first, you were last. To get to the next stage in this, when you're doing like career mode or campaign mode or whatever they call it, to get to the next stage, you had to finish first through third. If you didn't, it was game over. But if you didn't finish, the first lap you had to finish 15th or higher, then 10th or higher, then 7th or higher, then 5th or higher, then 3rd or higher. And if you finished in 6th place on lap 3, game over. You lose a life, start again. And I like that. It provided a change because it forced you to do something that a lot of games didn't force you how to do. You had to get good at it to. And I like games like that force you to be a better player than,
before you can move on. Yeah, that's a good game.
I mean, the only downside to this was that, the Tom Trial only had 7 of the 15 tracks. And Tom Trials are not the best to begin with, but with a game like this, because of the different hazards and stuff, Tom Trial works really, really well.
Well, it also allows you to build your skill a little bit and, get ready for, if you're trying to marathon through there and knock it all out. You
could pick, right, up to one of 4 different colors in this game. Right now, I didn't know until like a few years later that there was actual characters in the car and whatever, right? But
you're right.
But basically, each car, there were 4 cars, and each of the cars was ranked on 4 criteria. They had speed, acceleration, armor, and handling. Right, so I don't need to explain to everybody what each of them means. We all know that speed means who goes the fastest, acceleration who gets the fastest, so on and so forth, right? And each car kind of had like an average in one, a great in another, and a terrible in. So a weakness and a strength, and then a couple of average in each category. Yeah, like the Blue Falcon is the most famous car in the series, right? And that's the one I always got. Yeah, that had the best handling, but it was the 3rd slowest speed. It had the 3rd worst armor, but it had the 2nd best acceleration. Right. Then you had, was it the Golden Fox that I always picked because it had the best acceleration. Because yes, it might have been the slowest car, but it got to its 425 mile an hour a lot faster than the fastest car got to 425 mile an hour. You just cut around the corner and then kick the acceleration. And the Blue Falcon, Captain Falcon, became like the guy of this game. He became the star of the show. The other thing I liked about this too, right, the difficulty system in this game. It had 3 traditional levels of difficulty, like most games did. This was easy, medium, or hard, right? We all know that. And then the courses themselves were split up into 3 different difficulties too. So you had Knight, King, and Queen leagues, or Knight, Queen, and King leagues. Excuse me. Right. So what would happen is that the courses would get harder as, course 1 was a lot more easy than course 5, every single track, right? But it was kind of weird because you could play the 2nd track on Queen's League on easy, right? And that was that was easier than the 5th track on Knight League on medium, if that makes sense. Yeah, so the sliding scale was kind of weird in some respects. It was a double sliding scale, Okay. Yes, it would be the easiest version of the track that you could possibly play, but if you played a harder track, you'd still be playing that easy version of the track, but that easy version of the track is still harder than a hard version of a track that came before it, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm trying not to talk in circles, I promise. No, it's a little confusing, but yeah, basically, just the leveling gets tricky when you have that, like 3 scales like that. So, totally. And it worked. It worked. Maybe not great, but it worked, And, some of the tracks themselves even became iconic because of the soundtrack, which we're going to get to here in a second. Because the soundtrack was was phenomenal, right? It was absolutely off the chain, and it was not done by Koji Kondo.
Yeah, who's the man.
He was the man, but unfortunately this time it was done by Yukimo Kayanki and Natoyo Ishida. I apologize if I butchered those names. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I have a hard time pronouncing non-English names and words on the show. I try, but I don't succeed all the time.
Yumiko Kanaki and Naoto Ishida.
Yes,
or Ishida. That's my best attempt on that. I definitely have a lot of problems with Asian languages, especially too. I don't know how exactly they're pronounced. But.
Well, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've spent so many years learning Welsh and so many years learning Spanish, and I can't speak anything either. My brain refuses to learn a foreign language, or a native language in my case, which is really, really weird.
Your brain's full.
Right.
It happens, man. Your brain's full.
Like Homer Simpson, you know, how come after I took that homemade wine course, I forgot how to drive? That's because you were drunk. Yes, I was.
Exactly.
But, I mean, some of the soundtrack of this, right, has been used in other Nintendo releases, like on Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, and Mute City even got its own, like, composition done on Rock Band and Guitar Hero.
Huh. I did not know that. That's pretty neat.
I mean, that is pretty neat. I mean, look, this game right here, this was... There were 3 Nintendo franchises. It was Mario, Donkey Kong, and Zelda. And F-Zero joined that with the release of this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it was. Because it was just another bold take by Nintendo. They were really good at doing that.
They were. I'm kind of saddened that they don't take those risks as much anymore. But then again, it's hard to take those risks when, you know, I don't want.
The bread and butter works so well, man. Mario, people are still buying Mario. It's still awesome. So yeah, why must?
And that's the thing. They haven't released a new F-Zero in 16 years. Which, considering how many Smash Brothers, Marios, and Donkey Kongs and Zeldas they've released, surely they could dust off Captain Falcon for a couple of tracks.
Yeah, I figured they might after all this time, especially with they've had 3 new consoles since then.
Is it 3? No, 4.
Yeah,
I mean, minimum 4 new consoles. I mean, it's unbelievable. I say this is an 8 out of 10 game, and
I'd have to give it a 8.5, 9. I mean, there's one instant classic.
There's one reason I don't give it 10. Only one reason.
What's that?
This game was crying out for a 2-player mode.
Yeah, I always hated that. I have an emulated version on my son's SNES Mini, and that's the one thing that annoys me about it. And we don't end up playing it very much because it's one player.
Yeah. I mean, if it had 2 players, this would be the greatest racing game ever made.
I agree, and I think that it was probably, like the note says, that it was probably a technological limitation because they were working that system real hard for all that rendering it was doing,
and it was ahead of its time.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. So that's
for sure.
That's really it. That's our walk down memory lane of some of the great classics of the SNES. I mean, if you've not played F-Zero, I highly recommend you play F-Zero. If you've not played Pilotwings, I wouldn't necessarily go out of your way to get it, but if you stumble across it, go ahead and play it. You'll have a couple hours of fun. And
or just watch a video of it too. There's a bunch of playthroughs on YouTube. I was in preparation for this, I was watching some of it. There's lots of demos and stuff of it too. If you can't get to the console or just wanted to see what it looks like. Pretty cool.
And if you've never seen Shaq Fu before, I recommend just once downloading and playing it. Just to say you've played it. I mean,
yeah, it's a conversation piece. If you meet another gamer and you're trying to break the ice, be like, hey, how about that Shaq Fu? You know?
Hey, Imperial or Stormcloak? Hey, you played Shaq Fu?
Shaq Fu.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a Skyrim mod of Shaq Fu. It changes the fighting style, and actually no, it's going to be a weapon called Shaq Fu. It does double damage against zombies.
Redo all the giants as Shaq. He's really big. That kind of works.
So we have Randy Macho Man Savage Dragons, Zoidberg Crabs, Giant Shaqs.
There you go. Perfect.
You know,
and then It was the train.
Thomas the Tank
the
Engine.
Dragon. The Thomas the Tank Engine. Yeah, that was great.
You know, there's an Office Depot literally right around the corner from my house with a life-size cutout of Shaq holding a printer, and he is a big dude.
Yeah, if it's life size, yeah, he's like 7 foot plus.
He's 7'4", 320, legitimate.
And muscle, and a muscly 320.
That's the thing, right? The wrestling, the WWE was advertising the Big Show as 7'4", 400 pounds, and Shaq was like looking down on him, going, "What's up, brother?" You know, literally, he could have put his hand on his head. You know, the whole thing of with your little brother, put your hand on the head while they're trying to swing for you. He could have done that. He could have done that to the biggest wrestler that the wrestling company had.
Yeah, he's a big dude. It's no joke. Yeah, I saw him in person before, and he was far away, and he was still towering over everybody. It was incredible.
So again, don't think we're mocking Shaq, because like I said, I love Shaq. I think he's great. Great player, great businessman.
A good sport too. Like he's made fun of himself many a time and used his fame in such ways. Yeah, he's good.
But a horrible video game designer.
Yeah, they should have just left him out of that. They should have just made Shaq Jam and made it an NBA Jam clone and just been, you know. But, you know, no, we had to make it a fighting game.
Just like, oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, sure. And like 6 months later, so where's my fighting game? Well, we ran across some technical limitations and we thought we'd put you in your best environment. So here it is. Shaq's fighting basketball. And that's it.
There you go.
There was a game for the Amiga called Cannon Soccer. Right, which was the company that made Cannon Fodder and Sensible Soccer put both games together. Great idea. Okay. So like, you know, there was cannonballs and stuff fighting on things. That's what they should have done, you know. Or Speedball 2 with Shaq, you know. Just they should have kept it. They should have kept it basketball based. I think. I mean, it's just such a stretch. Like, I mean, honestly, if you're going to do that game, you could have put a litany of other fighters. You could have, you know, Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. Like, there's so many. I know licensing might have been tough, and maybe that was the other thing. I don't know, but like, it just, man, make a basketball game for Shaq. They should have given it to Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson Fu.
Yeah.
If you were beating me up, don't worry about it. I'll bite your ear off. Yeah. So that's pretty much it of the fighting classics, guys. We'll be back to tell you more about what we've got going on here in a minute, where we're going to be talking about our, as we brought up last week, our mustache and mullet drive. Ooh, yes.
I didn't know about the mullet part. That's interesting. Oh
yes. I'll let you know what's going on about that here in a minute. But if you want to catch up with Gregg, he could be found on Twitch doing the stream every now and then.
That's great.
And he kind of does all the retro games, classic games, and just for fun, you want to go and check him out, go ahead and do it. Again, he's a just for fun player. He's not like, you know, hey bro, let me do a speed run of blah 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 in like 10 minutes, you know.
Yeah, this is casual. I'm just a 30-something dad who's got a bunch of mini consoles and, you know, time to play. So yeah, last couple of days I did Double Dragon 2. I did it on Supreme Master. Basically, I'm just doing a one run, just go through, try to see if I can beat it in one sitting. I've had 2 runs and they were both unsuccessful. But it's extremely hard on Supreme Master. It's very, very unforgiving. And then they add in, traps and stuff. You go through this door and there's a conveyor belt. And if you're not paying attention, it throws you right in the pit. So, yeah, I've just been kind of doing that just for fun. Yeah, just messing around.
I found out something really, really awesome the other day. And I thought I would share this with everyone. Because, you know, we're recording these a little bit in advance. I was following Slack's Hearthfire playthrough of Skyrim.
Yeah.
And he was told by one of his viewers, stop, go through your room, smell the roses, right? And normally, you know, Slack doesn't do stuff like that, but you know who told him that? Skyrim Grandma.
Oh, yeah?
So she follows him and he follows her. My world is just like, yes!
The world, there is still good in this world. Yeah, I'm glad she's still around. I know she's not a spring chicken, so I'm glad she's still alive.
Between her and Slack, their combined age is 146 years old.
Man, that's a lot of game
She's
knowledge.
84 and he's 62. He doesn't sound a day over 35.
Yeah, no, I straight up thought he was mid late 30s when I first started following him, which was about 6 years ago, something like that. Yeah, so that I was very, very surprised by that.
So follow that guy too. Follow Major Slack and follow Shirley Curry. And follow...
Yes, that's her name. I couldn't remember her name.
All right, but we're going to hop off here. I'm going to give you more information on what we've got going on here and news about next week's show, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Hair. The one part of our anatomy that keeps us in touch with animals. And while some people think hair on the human body is gross, our sisters and mothers usually take the brunt of this with outdated concepts in society. However, if you are one of the many ladies who wishes for your legs, underarm, and nether regions to be smoother than a marble countertop, we have the product for you. Introducing Nads. Nads? Nads? What the... That's right! You can now purchase a product designed to remove all unsightly hair with the name that 12-year-old boys use to describe a part of their body with a bunch of unsightly hair. Originally designed by an Australian mother as a natural, gentle hair removal system to help her young daughter, Nads has grown to produce many products for every part of your body, even for the guys. Remember, we are not poking fun at this useful and awesome product, or the fact that the company that makes it is a beacon of female entrepreneurship. Just the name, which means testicles, which still makes this announcer laugh. Order today to get nadded. Look, I know it's a great product, it's a great company, but I refuse to believe that an Australian did not know that nads meant balls. Maybe it was a joke, I don't know, but I refuse to believe that. Great product, though, you know. A sincere thank you here at the Because Maybe Network to Gregg Gregory for taking the time out of his day to sit and talk with us about these awesomely great, decent, and very, very bad games. If you want to catch Gregg on Twitch, as we mentioned earlier, you go to twitch.tv/vintage_eyes. That's twitch.tv vintage_eyes. Next week on the Because of Me Network, our mid-season break is in effect, and we are not going to be doing Oddworld. Oddworld will return on November 3rd. In the meantime, we are gearing up for our Mustache and Mullet Drive for the Movember Foundation. Yes, usually Movember does the mustaches, and we all grow beautiful, glorious mustaches and donate to charity where where it's men's charities, where it looks at mental health for men and men's cancer charities. This year, however, we are up in the ante, and we're going to have everybody grow a glorious mullet if you can. I know I am. You're going to be able to see that soon enough. But also, what we're going to be doing on November 28th is we're going to be a live stream of FIFA The Road to World Cup 98. I'm going to see if I can take my own home country, the wonderful, wonderful Wales, all the way from the qualifiers to the championship. That's what I'm hoping for, okay? I haven't played this game in such a long time. It's going to be very, very fun. I got to figure out a way to turn the music off on it. I can't remember how to do it, but I'll get that in the very, very beginning. But yeah, it's going to be fun. And last year we did Oddworld New and Tasty. This year we're doing FIFA Road to World Cup 98, and I have no idea what we're going to do next year, but we will do something. And that is pretty much it. Next week, we're going to be joined by Sarah Connolly as we talk about a phenomenon in the video game genre. We're talking about the fantastic spawning 26 movies, 20 seasons of an anime TV show, and it started off about bug catching. We're going to be talking about Pokemon Red and Blue. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss that. And that's really it. That's all we've got for you guys. Again, hope you've had a good week. Hope, apologies for not being around last week, but, I forgot to mention that we were taking our traditional mid-season break, so apologies for that. But however, we keep on moving, and we keep on moving on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. Check out Because Maybe Network on all of those. Check out our YouTube channel at bit.ly/bmnetwork-youtube. That's where you can find all of our video game walkthroughs and everything that I just mentioned, the charity drive, the Oddworld series, and so on and so forth. And of course, if you're listening to this on somewhere where you don't listen to podcasts, check us out: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and Podchaser. That's the other one. I just signed up for that a couple of weeks ago. It's nice. I have my own page and everything like that. It's really cool, especially for somebody with an ego like mine. So aside from that, so that's it. I'll see you next week. Sarah will see you next week. Take it easy, everybody. Thank you so much.